What's delayed adulthood? Can it justify avoiding life? Why were the baby boomers expected to get a part-time job at an early age? Why doesn't the present generation, the post-millennials, feel that urgency?
The most beautiful girl in our school contacted me on Facebook, and I was shocked, and she was the most beautiful girl. And then nice chat and everything, and then she said, let me send you a picture. I said, great. So I waited a while, and suddenly there was a picture of her grandmother. I thought, why would you send me a picture of your grandmother? Well, it wasn't her grandmother, it was her. And so here I am, thinking that I'm 30 years old, and I was shocked. But I must, of course, look like she does. We're the same age. So I think that every generation has something that comes to it that either accelerates it or slows it down. My generation, we were baby boomers, so to speak. I'm just at the end of the baby boomers. And our parents were mostly war veterans. And so they filled us with this concept of work. I remember 13 years old, I was working. 14, I had a job, part-time job. It's very normal. So you were expected to mature. Most people quit school and when they were 16 or 17, never went to university. I don't know a lot of people that went to university, Luke, to be honest, So I was married when I was 24. I mean, you felt as if, and even that was old, you felt you were missing out something, right? Present generation, however, due to health and longevity and electronic media, everything else, doesn't feel an urgency to become anything really, to become mature, to et cetera, et cetera. They're into a process, and I don't think they're using it so much as an excuse as it just seems for them to be normal. And all of them, look, in the end, face the harsh reality. One of the strangest things for me is to see your high school students leaving, and you run into them 3 and 4 years later, and they're greatly different, greatly. They're matured, their haircuts are different, their body shapes are different, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the secret is to get away from your principal caregiver, your parents in this case, and step into the world. And if you don't do that, like I have some students that are very sheltered. They might go to university and they might live away from their families during the week, but they're still very sheltered, And I think the minute you step into Europe, for instance, or America, you change. And so I don't think it's an excuse. It's just the process is different.
What is satyagraha? How does the present generation view this concept? Has the Dalai Lama ever been stoned?
Satyagraha is peace, as I understand it, is peacefulness, peace. And I think that God willing, we are into a generation now that does not. I was reading yesterday that the Japanese military has got a major problem. Nobody wants to join, right? It's almost like, what's the old adage I was reading? They gave a war and nobody came, right? So just maybe that this generation can touch on something called peace. And that's what Satyagraha is about. It's about peacefulness, right? You don't have to have a military aggressive conflict. Right? You can have peace. Look, I mean this, I mean, what would happen if we lived in a peaceful world, Luke? I think, first of all, we could discuss things like population control, environmental concerns. I mean, we could, yesterday, I was watching the news, Donald Trump is on to the war on drugs. And I think numerous studies have shown that the drug problem, if you can call it that, is not a criminal issue, it's a medical issue. It has to be dealt with from a medical standpoint. I mean, why would a person want to take drugs? For starters, Luke, I mean, you're not taking drugs because you're happy, filled with life, filled with joy. Is the Dalai Lama stoned? I don't think so, right? That's a great quote, eh? Is the Dalai Lama stoned? Sadhguru says he's drunk, actually. He says he's drunk on emotion and excitement of life, and wow, I mean, that's what you hope. So that's what that Gandhi's concept, as I understand it, is all about. Being peaceful and peaceful in your soul. Right?
What is the industrial military complex?
What I mean by this, Luke, is I think that let's take something like war, okay? War on the face of it looks, for a business person, looks very, very good, because you're going to make a lot of money selling tanks and trucks, etc., etc. But when you critically think it through, you realize that the human suffering is going to far outweigh your economic, potential, so to speak. And then you rationally say to yourself, I should be in a state of peace. But that can only be achieved through critical thinking. Like the industrial military complex, I've read, watched Eisenhower's speech, etc., has been the realization on the part of, in this case, mostly American businessmen, that there's far more money in tanks, in guns, and weaponry than there is in cars. And so we've devoted our resources for the last 70 years to weaponry, to aggression. And then, of course, you always hear, but the military has helped develop, etc., etc. And I think that's just pandering to, once again, to the whole industrial side. That I don't believe it personally. I don't think weaponry is far outweighed. Ballistic rockets were designed, the V2 by von Braun was designed during World War II, and it got the Americans to the moon. Great. But how many slaves did it kill? It killed more slaves than people, look, They killed 7,000 people, and they say 14,000 slaves in I think, Piemonte, I think, were killed making these rockets. They slept right where the rockets were, right? It's just horrible conditions to produce this weapon.
What is the common good? How do we come to peace with our body? What does always excellence mean?
I would not call myself a communist, Luke, but I would call myself the type of individual who believes that you can have a type of dynamic socialism, right? And socialism, in my way of thinking, means that we understand that the social contract that we all make with our state, requires that the state give as much as I give, right? And so we have an idealized model of what's gone on in Sweden for a period of time. Now the difficulty, look, is that there is some concern that these kinds of states do produce a sense of laziness. So how do you institutionalize ambition? That's nobody quite knows that answer. It seems that some people, the more I give you social benefits and whatever, let's take where we are here. The hospitals are full of people. A lot of people do not look sick, right? And I suspect a lot of people are not sick, but they like the doctor, the all-encompassing medical system, and it hurts us, right? It hurts us. Chewing betel nut. Everyone knows it gives you esophageal cancer. There's no maybe, it just does. It's a burden on the state. Fast food. They say 1 in 4 Taiwanese now are heavy, or fat men, and it's growing, right? And I spoke to a doctor recently. He said that colon cancer is one of the major killers in Taiwan. These are realities. So in this case, if you have to be at peace with your own temple, your own body. You have to. I think that I'm a believer, Luke, in responsibility, right? And I do believe that I have this belief that always excellence, why not? Like, wouldn't I want the best I could be, the best temple I could possess, the best action I could bring forward? Wouldn't I want that as a dynamic human being in this beautiful world? Wouldn't I? And the answer should be yes, but a lot of people don't want it for whatever reason, right? They seem to accept mediocrity, and I think that's got to only be fear, right? Because it's hard to be you, Luke. It just is. It's hard to take what the cosmos has given you and work with it, because we are all these raw diamonds. And if you've ever seen a diamond, they tell you this diamond, when polished, will be worth $10 million, but right now it's worth $10,000. There we are. And that to me is a very good metaphor,
What does the saying, "they gave a war and nobody came," mean?
I think that the kids now, for instance, are not going to go to war, I believe, because they just, I mean, not that they don't want to, but they just seemingly don't care. And I think that if you don't care, what will happen is that eventually things such as, you know, aggressive religions will slowly begin to die, right? Because if you have critical thinking, Luke, you realize that it's pointless to advance your agenda, whatever it is, forcefully, whatever it is. Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, it doesn't matter. Pardon me. You advance that agenda, and there's no win. There's win for the older people, but for the younger people, they really do want to talk to you, you know, because the internet, you know, the internet is interconnected, right? And yes, these fundamental religions do get the kooks, but I bet you less and less all the time. Really, I do. You know, it's only when they, like I was reading recently about a relatively young jihadist from England who's gone to fight in Syria, and he's going to fight to the bitter end, and he has certain fundamentalist beliefs, and I think that he's the exception, really. Yeah, I think really there's a whole bigger agenda to this in a sense. You know, I don't think these fundamentalist religions are growing to that extent. Yes, the population of the religion is growing through birth, but I think there are more and more thoughtful people, because look, there is no God or no creative source on the planet that wants to destroy the planet in the process. You know, I know Christianity is about love, and other religions not so much, but it's still, when young people, I mean, we're all the same, Luke. Gosh almighty. You know, I cut my arm and my blood is as red as your blood, as red as a Muslim's blood, etc., right? And I think that when we really get down to this, and the young people through the internet, they know this. Look, they know this. They know. There are some kooks, but I think it's really going to be the statement, they gave a war and nobody came. I think we will see this one day.